Hey, it's Brett, and today we are continuing the Shithole that I call home by Anarchothoughtism Collective, and this section is called George Floyd Rebellion of 2020, a clusterfuck. During the George Floyd Rebellion, the lack of solid organizing and security culture in Milwaukee led to a black misleadership and celebrity career activists seizing control and altering the trajectory of a radical movement into neoliberalism along a counter-revolutionary line. The People's Resolution, TPR, was formed in the early days of the George Floyd Rebellion and was initially spearheaded by Frank Nitti, Vaughn Mays, and Khalil Coleman. These leaders quickly proved dysfunctional as accusations of homophobia and misogyny bubbled to the forefront almost immediately. Throughout 2020, we talked with individuals involved in TPR's protests, and though accounts varied from person to person, what we picked up on overall was that TPR's leadership fostered an environment that made protests feel unsafe for black women and queer individuals. On June 12, 2020, TPR leadership was called out in a Facebook live stream regarding accusations of misogynistic and derogatory language used toward queer protesters. While Vaughn Mays showed up to the live stream for the accountability, Frank Nitti and Khalil Coleman did not. There were repeated attempts to reach out to Frank and Khalil, which seemed to be met with hostility. The presence of misogyny and homophobia are major red flags for any group claiming to be revolutionary. The Facebook live stream did not provide the accountability process needed to change the course. In an ideal world, Frank, Vaughn, and Khalil would have stepped down from their leadership positions within TPR and undergone a serious accountability process that involved their removal from movement and protest work, if only until genuine efforts toward transformation had occurred. The effects of misogyny and what we'll call weak link politics have been touched on repeatedly in writings such as Why Misogynists Make Great Informants by Courtney Desiree Morris, and that's available on the channel to listen to, and Basic Politics of Movement Security by Jay Sakai and Mandy Hiscox. As Morris succinctly points out, quote, there are serious consequences for choosing ignorance. Misogyny and homophobia are central to the reproduction of violence in radical activist communities. Scratch a misogynist and you'll find a homophobe. Scratch a little deeper and you might find the makings of a future informant, or someone who just destabilizes movements like informants do. In Basic Politics of end quote. In Basic Politics of Movement Security, Sakai details the story of an FBI informant known as Tom, who played a role in destabilizing the Black Panthers. Tom got in with the Black Panthers by appealing to patriarchal values. Sakai recounts Tom being called out by the group of local women on suspicion of being an informant. Oh, it's politics that's so hard for me to learn because I had no education. I want to learn. I'm sorry. Give me another chance. Tom rebuffed in a way that is somewhat similar to the accountability dodging Mays did during the live stream referenced above. Quote, I am ignorant to a lot of this shit, you know? As far as being a straight male versus y'all community, the LGBTQ plus community, there's a lot of shit I don't understand. I don't primarily deal with y'all community, end quote. We don't draw this comparison to accuse Vaughn or the former TPR leadership of being outright informants. Practically speaking, there's no way for anyone to know unless evidence explicitly demonstrates otherwise. The point is not to badjacket or drum up needless suspicion. However, we draw the comparison to accentuate that an individual's politics, actions, and consistency should be examined with a discerning critical eye. trust and access should not be easily given to those who consistently show up with weak-link politics, Sakai states. Quote, security is not about being macho vigilantes or being super suspicious. Security is about good politics. That's why it's so difficult and requires good politics from the movement as a whole. This is demanded of us. Bad politics covered for agents. If that's bad politics, like opportunism, patriarchy, sexism, and class privilege, rips up the fabric of our terrain, the area of our radical culture, and weaves it instead into that terrain all their old oppressors' politics, their values. End quote. And to quote one anonymous post for context on July 10th, it was posted, so we're going to ignore the fact that Frank Nitti and Khalil stole a whole protest centered around justice for sexual assault victims, and then Millie rocked in a circle to their own theme song. But these are the same people who neglected young black marchers from their community because they are so uncomfortable with female leadership. They barged into the church we slept in at 2 a.m, indiscreetly sharing our location on Facebook, yelling at and disrespecting black student leaders with guns in their hands, calling it protection, only to abandon us the next day. This is a genuine question, and I mean absolutely no disrespect. Whose people are you really fighting for? Where were you when we were harassed and stalked by white supremacist militias? If we cannot trust our own for protection, who else do we have? Who else is there to trust? Thank you to everyone who truly supported our 65-mile march from Milwaukee to Madison and amplified the voices of black women and youth. All Black Lives Matter, freedom and solidarity. 50 miles more. And there are a couple other, there's actually a lot of visuals in this particular zine. It's a defaced portrait of Frank Nitti. And I found this on Anarchist Library, like a lot of really great stuff that I read. So if you want to check that out and get a better look at this, it's available on the anarchistlibrary.org. TPR slowly unraveled throughout the rebellion. Despite appointing themselves revolutionaries, TPR operated in multitudes of obvious contradictions. They frequently partnered with local elected officials and pushed electoralism, lobbying and reform as a method of revolution. State representatives such as David Bowen and Jonathan Brostoff publicly aligned themselves with TPR and attended marches consistently. Quote, they used their resources to help as many people as possible and to push the system to be accountable, especially to black and brown people, quote, said David Bowen to Milwaukee magazine in September 2020. The excess media attention around the George Floyd rebellion provided the perfect stage for stooges to bolster their platforms and appeal to potential voters. While electoralism and aligning oneself with the state may seem like a clear pitfall to an experienced organizer or theorist aligned with revolutionary liberatory movements, it bears explaining it to those less familiar. Aligning oneself with politicians, elements of the state, or electoralism is explicitly counter-revolutionary. Quote, it isn't revolutionary or materialist to disconnect things, to disconnect revolutionary consciousness from revolutionizing activity, to build consciousness with political agitation and education issue-making alone isn't idealistic, rather than materialist. The effect has been reformism rather than revolution. When any election is held, it will fortify rather than destroy the credibility of power brokers. When we participate in this election to win, instead of disrupt, we're lending to its credibility and destroying our own. George Jackson, from Blood in My Eye. TPR's leadership brought forth a movement of co-optation, empty symbolism, and misdirection. It's no surprise that Vaughn Mays has recently aligned himself with MPD post-rebellion, advocating for increased police surveillance through the ShotSpotter technology. According to Shepherd Express, ShotSpotter is an acoustics-based technology that locates potential gunshots via impulsive sound. The contract with ShotSpotter has cost the city of Milwaukee $3.7 million over the past 13 years. Quote, I'd like my ComForce team to get access to ShotSpotter because when we hear shootings in our neighborhoods, it is sometimes difficult to find the location. We are here to help the police and protect the presidents, and we are expanding. I think we are setting a standard on how true collaboration and unity is supposed to look. We want to work with the police, said Mays, referring to Community Task Force, a nonprofit he helms which regularly partners with MPD. And here is proof that Frank Nitti was never registered to vote the entire time that he is out there promoting electoralism. From a security culture standpoint, TPR's practices were negligent and put protesters at risk. TPR's marches often lacked street medics. Leadership constantly live-streamed their whereabouts, and TPR provided little to no recourse, such as bail funds or free legal representation, for those arrested. Leadership also folded in with the likes of fascist groups such as the Boogaloo Boys, posing as street medics for TPR. The effect of this negligence was culminated when the rebellion reached Wauwatosa and Kenosha. According to the Daily Montanan, Wauwatosa Police Department managed to create a list of over 200 protesters, and a good portion of that list included members of TPR, as well as people who marched in solidarity with them. The list was created by Dominic Ratkowski, a crime analyst for WPD, and was utilized as early as mid-July by 2020. The list was circulated amongst Milwaukee Police Department, Kenosha Police Department, and the FBI office in Milwaukee. Up to 12 agencies received the list. Members of TPR were mailed tickets as high as $1,300, the Daily Montanan reads. On August 28th, Gibson, Milwaukee DA investigator, asked for any list or photographs of protesters to share with Kenosha. On September 15th, the list, which had been shared by Ratkowski, was sent to Kenosha PD Detective Pablo Torres, who worked for the department's Special Investigations Unit at the time. Here is an updated list of the subjects identified as members or associates of the People's Revolution. Gibson's email reads, the screenshot below does not prove that Coleman or TPR leadership was feeding members information to law enforcement agencies. It is merely conjecture, but we cannot dismiss a possibility. It is a possibility. Regardless of whether the intent was malicious or not, a lack of security practices essentially had the same effect as an informant or wrecker. TPR members and leadership had been arrested at several points during the rebellion, and during any of these arrests, police could have confiscated their cell phones to collect intelligence on members and associates. This is why maintaining anonymity is key. Never bring a cell phone to a protest, and never record yourself for others engaging in protest activity. Your identity should be your most protected asset. Cover tattoos, piercings, and other identifying features that always wear plain, unbranded clothing. Consider utilizing a pseudonym during protest. Always remember your cell phone and other pieces of technology can act as a cop, and avoid the potentiality of surveillance as much as possible. Our advice for those participating in protests and riots is to return to analog styles of communication. Written notes, utilizing walkie-talkies, communicating face-to-face, implementing coded language. Detailed in episode 8 of the Alphabet Boys podcast, an FBI program known as social media exploitation was utilized during the George Floyd rebellion. This program allowed the FBI and local law enforcement to mine social media accounts and create files on individuals without probable cause. The host of Alphabet Boys, Trevor Aronson, goes on to detail the story of a woman charged with a crime for throwing her bike down near a police officer. She was captured on police body camera and identified by law enforcement through social media posts, specifically by matching photos of her biking gear with her attire in the video. Police were able to attain a warrant to search her home, and she was charged with attempted aggravated assault of a police officer, a second-degree felony. Police reforms, such as body cameras, are weaponized against those who dare resist in the state. There is a will to charge you with a crime, and then there is a way. People should always keep in mind that their social media presence is likely being monitored and should try to practice good digital hygiene. Intentional mass arrests are an outdated tactic of the 60s and 70s. In the present day, arrests should be avoided if possible. You do not want to be logged in to any state system, as it makes it easier for law enforcement to target and track you for an indeterminable length of time. Ultimately, TPR's influence managed to assimilate many young people into their organization, placing youth directly in harm's way. This disillusion traumatized and embittered many young people. Tyrone Randall, a participant in TPR's protest, was pinned by police, left on the ground, and struck by a car. Tyrone was left with broken ribs, a broken pelvis, and thousands of dollars in medical debt. TPR's failures fostered an environment that made many reluctant to return to grassroots organizing as a whole. Former members and youth of TPR were quickly assimilated into the NPIC, the nonprofit industrial complex, once the organization grew stagnant. Post-George Floyd rebellion. Where are they? The post-rebellion TPR quickly dissolved, and a few of the former leadership remain active. In April 2022, Khalil Coleman was found guilty in the first degree for robbery that took place in Kentucky in February of 2021. Coleman attempted to rob a trap house with the coerced aid of a minor and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Coleman maintains that he is innocent via Facebook post, and he has been soliciting support for his appeal through an online petition. Around August 2020, Frank Nitti led a march from Milwaukee to Washington, D.C. In the immediate aftermath of this commemorative journey, several scandals began to surround Nitti. Rumors of Nitti stealing and mishandling donations circulated on social media, which led to some accusations of him using the funds to take white women on dates. Additionally, a Facebook group of, quote, sister wives, end quote, boasting of nearly 200 members at one point, formed around Nitti. All jokes aside, around November 2020, Nitti was accused of sexually assaulting 4 separate women. He was arrested and held in jail for a short period before he had his bail posted, and charges were never brought against him. After 17 months, prosecutors decided that there was not enough evidence against Nitti between the 4 women who accused him, and dropped the charges completely. Based on Nitti's history of misogyny, we believe the women who accused him. Nitti's whereabouts and current activity remain unclear, as he seemingly disappeared from Milwaukee altogether. Vaughn Mays remains active in Milwaukee's nonprofit organizing scene. He currently remains a leader of ComForce, engaging in ambulance chasing. Vaughn has continuously aligned himself with the police, local politicians, and even noted transphobe huckster Dr. Umar Johnson. Conclusion. Wrapping this shit up. 2020 demonstrated that Milwaukee is not politically prepared to resist the rising tide of fascism. It is a frightening position to be in, considering that the RNC is coming to Milwaukee September of 2024. The fascism black people in Milwaukee have had to face has primarily been institutionalized, moderated through politicians, policing, prisons, and the racist state-city policy. The city has rarely had to face off directly against fascist demonstrators. There is no dedicated black bloc or anti-fascist presence prepared to push back against the fascists that will come together in Milwaukee, summer of 2024. The city is seeking to import nearly 4,500 officers to Milwaukee for the convention. Frankly, we wouldn't recommend an outright counter-demonstration against the 2024 RNC. Marginalized people should stay home the day the RNC comes to town. Those interested in preparation should get street medic training and learn how to treat gunshot wounds. Black communities situated directly near the RNC should prepare their neighborhoods or block and community self-defense tactics. Prepare for violence, but do not seek it out. Strategically, there are stronger opportunities for resisting. The youth prison coming to Milwaukee's north side should be resisted, and the youths that remain captive in Lincoln Hills should not be abandoned in cages of the state. A non-carceral solution is desperately needed. We're not sure what the exact solution looks like for Milwaukee, but answers have already been conceptualized by the writings such as Instead of Prisons, by the Prison Research Education Action Project. The text details an experiment done in Massachusetts in 1972 to decarcerate the state's juvenile prison system. The majority of youths returned home on parole. Some were sent to a local university to work with student advocates for a month. The text continues, quote, "The administrative system was decentralized, with 7 regional offices set up to make all the decisions about individual youth placements and needs. Almost all services for the juveniles were contracted from private agencies, resulting in the creation of a wide range of community programs," end quote. It advocates cutting ties with the criminal justice system, including instances of parole and probation, releasing prisoners to community-controlled support and peer groups on a case-by-case basis. Instead, the writers advocate that instead of sitting the rest of their sentence, former prisoners should be involved in restoration processes. The strategies mentioned above are an intermediary steps toward prison abolition. The authors note, quote, "We caution strongly that all interim as well as long-range strategies be considered only after conferring with the knowledgeable prisoner and ex-prisoner groups. Interim policies crucially affect the lives of prisoners still inside the system and many ex-prisoners on the streets. What seems a paltry and therefore unacceptable change to those outside the wall might be a highly significant and desirable change for them when they are caged or under control in the streets. If there are differences in strategies between prisoners who have experienced the day-to-day reality of prisons and prison changers who have not, take the time to hammer out differences and reach agreements. Strategies and tactics that are not in unity weaken the total movement toward system change. People interested in building a truly revolutionary movement should study the principles and histories of anarchism, the Anarchothoutism, black radicals, and anti-state communism within groups. Just a second. Okay, let me try that over. People interested in building a truly revolutionary movement should study the principles and histories of anarchism, the Anarchothoutism, black radicals, and anti-state communism within groups. While white organizers need to step back and follow the lead of black radicals or get out of the way. Deprioritize the visibility of individual organizers and the mindset of individualized leadership or hierarchies. The aim should be an anonymous and autonomous mass movement of free association that centers the issues of the most oppressed, the most marginalized, the problems of the lumpen proletariat, black, queer, transgender, and gender non-conforming folks, those with disabilities, the poor, the houseless, etc. Organizing methodology outlined in Move Like Mikorze from Afrofuturist Abolitionists of America demonstrates best practices. Organizing in this way provides a layer of security and protection from opportunists, clout chasers, and potential informants or state agents. We can't tell you what to study, what to do, or how to organize. We can only suggest that anyone who reads this zine study past and present liberation movements of colonized people, both within and outside of the United States. Learn where others have failed or succeeded. If the conditions are right, repeat what has proven successful and try not to repeat mistakes. It's the principle of Sankofa, meaning, quote, go back and fetch it, end quote. Take what is useful, leave behind what is not. Studying, organizing, and remaining principled in the liberation struggle of is a lifelong commitment. We'll never stop learning. Movements will change, tactics will change. New theories and organizing methodologies will need to be established from the foundation of what previous black radicals left behind. Studying and organizing along black anarchic radicals and the Anarchothoutism guided us to our current political trajectory. We don't believe in authoritarian methodologies, cults of personality, or that black people need a leader to effectively organize and win. There will be no vanguard to lead the masses to revolution, nor is it the role of the political theorist. Frantz Fanon stated, quote, to educate the masses politically does not mean, cannot mean, making a political speech. What it means is to try, relentlessly and passionately, to teach the masses that everything depends on them. If we stagnate, it is their responsibility, and that if we go forward, it is due to them too. That there is no such thing as a demiurge, that there are people, the people themselves, and oh, come on, man. and magic hands are finally the only hands of the people. God. All right. As the tide of fascism rises, climate change accelerates. And as technocratic corporations advance, living conditions under capitalism worsen. Political and state repression will become more visceral. We saw it in 2020 with state agents snatching protesters off the streets in unmarked vehicles. We saw it in Kenosha when law enforcement stood in league with fascist armed militias. We're seeing it in motion with the development of Cop City in Atlanta, a project with international implications to further militarize the police, preparing them for urban warfare with citizens. If there was ever a time to gain urgency, to connect and organize within your community, it's now. The politics of capitalism, of fascism, is ultimately a politic of slow death and suffering for the many in exchange for the short-term gain and excess for a few. We hope to see the end of this fetid, vile system in this lifetime or the next. And this was published by Anarchothoughtism Collective. And you can find that on redvoice.news or at the anarchistlibrary.org. If you enjoyed this and want to check out more, I have this in a playlist with other essays and zines that I've been reading off of the internet, trying to set up a big library of different underrepresented voices. And so it goes. All right, thank you.